Can I borrow your rifle for a minute? SEAL snipers failed, but she hit 100 targets straight. The desert air was sharp with the smell of gun oil and scorched brass. Heat shimmered above the long stretch of the Navy SEALs training range, where silence usually meant focus. But today, laughter cracked through the stillness, the kind of laughter that hides insecurity behind arrogance. At the center of it stood her, sleeves rolled up, a faint smear of carbon on her cheek, and a single crutch leaning against her leg. She wasn't supposed to be here, not really. Technicians didn't join live fire drills. But she'd been sent to recalibrate the targeting sensors, the same sensors the SEAL snipers had just failed to align after 3 full rounds of attempts. "Hey, ma'am," one of them called out, smirking as he twirled his rifle by the strap, "maybe you can fix our aim too while you're at it." The group chuckled. She didn't answer. Her eyes swept the range, 100 steel targets set at intervals, gleaming in the late morning sun. She knew the pattern, the distances, the way the crosswinds carved through this valley. She had designed the calibration system herself. "Can I borrow your rifle for a minute?" she asked suddenly. The laughter faltered. The sniper blinked, unsure if she was joking. "You serious?" She nodded once. Calm, certain. Another SEAL leaned against a post, grinning. "Ma'am, these aren't range toys. That rifle's got more zeros in its price tag than your paycheck." Her lips curved. Not quite a smile, more a quiet challenge. "Then I suppose you should want to see it handled properly." Something in her tone made the captain, a broad-shouldered man with silver threading his buzz cut, gesture for the weapon to be handed over. "Let's see what she's got," he said. She took the rifle like someone reacquainting with an old friend. The weight settled perfectly into her shoulder. She adjusted the scope by half a degree, a motion so practiced it was muscle memory. Then, without another word, she crouched behind the barricade. "Target 1, she murmured. Crack. The ping of metal came a second later, dead center. The SEALs exchanged looks. "Fluke," one muttered. "Target 2. Crack. Ping. Dead center again." By the 5th target, the smirks were gone. By the 10th, the jokes had died in their throats. She didn't rush, didn't pose. Every shot was measured, every breath perfectly controlled. At 25, a bead of sweat rolled down her temple. She didn't wipe it. The world had shrunk to the whisper of her breath and the steady rhythm of recoil. By the 50th target, the captain's arms were folded, his expression unreadable. By 75, the men who had laughed were silent, their eyes flicking from her to the untouched list of hits recorded on the monitor. At the 100th, she lowered the rifle and exhaled. "Targets calibrated," she said softly, handing the rifle back. No one spoke. The wind carried only the metallic echo of perfection. The air on the range had changed. What once smelled of sweat and mockery now hung heavy with disbelief. The 100 steel plates downrange stood like a row of silent witnesses, each with a clean, perfect strike, 1 bullet, 1 hit. The SEAL snipers hadn't said a word since her last shot. The captain broke the silence first. "You trained somewhere?" he asked, his voice low, almost cautious. She was already packing up the spent casings, placing them neatly beside the rifle. "A few places," she said simply. The youngest sniper, a kid with too much pride in his voice, stepped forward. "That grouping, that's not beginner luck. No one gets 100 straight on this range. Not even us." She looked up then, eyes calm, unreadable. "That's why I borrowed your rifle." The captain crouched beside her, inspecting the rounds. "You adjusted for wind drift mid-sequence. How'd you read it so fast?" She met his gaze. "You listen to it. The flags talk if you know their language." For a moment, no one spoke. The snipers had trained their entire careers to master ballistics, weather, and breathing, the unseen equations behind every shot. But what she'd just done wasn't textbook. It was instinct carved from repetition, from experience they couldn't name. The captain finally stood. "I've seen precision shooters, Olympians, Tier 1 operatives, but I've never seen control like that." Her response was quiet. "That's because you've never met anyone from my unit." He frowned. "Which unit?" She didn't answer right away. She walked to her crutch, propped against a stack of ammo crates, and stood with deliberate ease. The sun caught the metal tag tied around its handle, a small emblem, silver and faintly worn. The captain's eyes narrowed as recognition flickered across his face. "Wait," he said, stepping closer. "That insignia," one of the snipers cut in. "That's Ghost Division, sir." The range went dead silent again. The name wasn't spoken often, not outside classified briefings. The Ghost Division was the whispered legend, an experimental, disavowed unit of marksmen and reconnaissance specialists who vanished from records 5 years ago. Rumors said they trained to shoot through chaos, to hit targets by sound alone if visibility failed. The captain's jaw tightened. You're telling me you were Ghost? She shook her head slightly. Was. They don't exist anymore. He studied her, a flicker of respect breaking through the disbelief. Explains why you didn't flinch when my boys laughed. She slung the rifle over her shoulder, not like a trophy, but like something that belonged to her long before this day. Respect isn't handed out at the range, she said softly. It's earned when the dust settles. As she walked away, the SEALs remained frozen, men trained never to be impressed, now watching a legend limp quietly into the fading sunlight. The captain finally spoke, more to himself than anyone else. Ghost Division, he exhaled. We should have known when she asked to borrow the rifle.